Chapter 1. The Market of Dust. The twin suns of New Caridon 4 beat down upon the steel roofs of the colony's largest trade district, baking the dust into golden haze. Human merchants yelled over the noise of engines and chatter, their voices mixing with the melodic hums of alien traders. The colony had been founded a century ago, part of humanity's attempt to coexist with dozens of alien races after the Great Expansion. Among the crowd moved Elias Trent, a cargo handler and part-time mechanic. His shifts were long, the pay short, but he was known for being fair, and for never turning away a hungry stranger. As he packed up his stall for the day, he felt it again, that subtle shift of weight on the table behind him. He turned. Someone had taken another ration pack. He sighed, looking past the blur of motion disappearing behind a hover cart. It was the third day in a row. Whoever was stealing from him was fast and small. "Hey!" he called half-heartedly, but the thief was gone. Elias scratched his beard and muttered, "Well, if you're hungry enough to risk stealing from me, maybe you need it more." He didn't tell the colony patrol. He just restocked and went home. Chapter 2. The Shadow in the Alley. The next evening he set a small trap, though not to catch, just to confirm. He arranged his food stall as usual but left one ration pack closer to the edge. Then he pretended to be busy fixing a crate engine, watching from the corner of his eye. Minutes passed. Then a flash. A figure darted out, wrapped in a tattered cloak. Elias moved silently around the cart. When the thief turned, she froze. It was a child, maybe 14, maybe younger, but not human. Her skin shimmered faintly turquoise, her eyes like molten silver. She had the delicate features of a Carithian, one of the alien refugee species who'd come to the colony after their homeworld collapsed. Her small hands clutched the ration pack tight, as if ready to run. Elias knelt down slowly. "Hey, easy kid. I'm not gonna hurt you." She hesitated, then hissed softly, a high, chittering sound, before bolting down the alley. But before she vanished, he noticed something strange, a bracelet of woven copper wire around her wrist, handmade, broken in one place. Chapter 3. The Hidden Shelter. Elias followed the direction she had run, through twisting alleys and into the lower levels. The old mining tunnels turned slums. The air smelled of rust and coolant leaks. He found a dim cavern lit by bioluminescent fungi. There, hidden behind an old mining crawler, was a makeshift shelter, blankets, bottles, and a weak generator. Inside, the alien girl was feeding a faint, older figure. Her mother, clearly ill, lay on a bed of woven cloth. Her breathing was shallow, her skin pale. The girl froze when she saw him standing at the entrance. Elias raised his hands. "I'm not here to take anything. I just wanted to see why." The girl didn't speak at first. Then in broken English she whispered, "Mother's sick. No work. No credits. Need food." He stepped closer, placing the ration pack on the ground. "You don't have to steal. Just ask." Her silver eyes widened. "Humans don't give. They take." Elias exhaled, feeling the sting of truth in her words. "Maybe some do. But not all." He left a small bundle of supplies by the entrance. Food, a blanket, a bottle of clean water, then walked away without another word. Chapter 4. The Unspoken Routine. Days turned into weeks. Every evening, Elias would leave a little extra at his stall. Food, medicine, sometimes even a battery pack. He pretended not to notice when it disappeared, but sometimes he'd catch a glimpse of her. The alien girl, thinner but determined, watching from the shadows. One evening, as the orange sun dipped below the colony domes, She approached him voluntarily. "Why?" she asked. He smiled. "Because I can." She frowned. "That not reason." "Maybe not," he admitted. "But sometimes doing the right thing doesn't need one." Her name, he learned, was Sira. Her mother, Meka, had once worked for the colony as a linguist before being dismissed after the Carithian riots. With no ID and no job, they'd fallen through the cracks. Elias began visiting their shelter regularly, fixing their power cell and bringing soup. Slowly, Sira began to trust him. But peace was fragile. Chapter 5. The Patrol and the Price. One morning, a patrol drone hovered over Elias's stall. A voice barked from the loudspeaker. "Elias Trent, you are under investigation for providing unauthorized aid to non-registered aliens." He froze. Someone had reported him. Probably one of the other merchants tired of the missing rations. They searched his home and found traces of Carithian DNA. He could have lied. He could have denied everything. But he didn't. "Yes," he said. "I helped them. Because no one else would." He was fined heavily and given a warning. Another violation would mean expulsion from the colony, exile to the mining moons. That night, he told Sira what had happened. She lowered her gaze. "You hurt because of me." Elias shook his head. "I'd do it again." She looked at him for a long time, as if trying to understand what kind of creature would risk everything for someone not of his kind. Chapter 6. The disease. Meka's illness worsened. Her skin grew translucent, her breathing shallow. Carithians required a rare mineral serum to survive on human worlds, something called tyrethine, manufactured only in orbit and priced like gold. Elias spent every credit he had to buy one vial. It wasn't enough. Sira tried to refuse it. "We can't take from you more." He placed the vial in her hands. "You're not taking. I'm giving." He watched as she administered the serum. For the first time in months, her mother's color returned slightly. But it wouldn't last. One vial was only a temporary fix. Chapter 7. The Raid. At dawn, the slum tunnels trembled with the roar of engines. Patrol units stormed the lower sectors, searching for illegal refugees. Elias ran. He found Sira and Meka's shelter already surrounded. A patrol officer aimed a plasma rifle. "Step away, human. These aliens are scheduled for removal." Elias raised his arms. "They're sick. She's just a child." The officer sneered. "They're not our responsibility." When the officer moved to fire, Elias tackled him. The plasma bolt went wild, striking the ceiling. The patrol scattered as the tunnel collapsed, debris raining down. When the dust cleared, the patrol fled, believing everyone dead. But beneath the rubble, Elias and Sira clawed their way out. He was bleeding badly. She tried to drag him. "Go," he coughed. "Get your mother to the shuttle bay. There's a cargo ship leaving tonight. I'll hold them off." Tears glistened in her silver eyes. "Humans don't leave others behind." He smiled faintly. "You've been paying attention." Chapter 8. The Return. Weeks later, the colony listed Elias Trent as missing, presumed dead. But rumors spread of a Carithian girl and her mother seen boarding a freighter, carrying a wounded man. Years passed. The colony changed. Then, one quiet morning, a ship descended on New Caridon 4. A delegation of Carithians stepped out, their technology far more advanced than before. At their front stood Sira, tall, confident, her silver eyes glowing with purpose. She met the colony governor and said, "The Carithian Union will share its new medical serums freely with humans, in honor of one who showed us humanity when no one else did. Behind her, an older man stepped forward, limping but alive. Elias Trent. The crowd gasped. He smiled at her, and she bowed slightly. You once fed me every day when I had nothing. Now I feed worlds. The colony erupted in applause. And in that moment, beneath the same twin suns that had once baked the dust of despair, human kindness had rewritten the stars themselves. The end. Here's part 2, chapters 5 to 8. The conclusion. Chapter 5. The Law and the Kind. The following cycle, 2 uniformed officers showed up at Elias's workstation. Elias Trent, one said flatly. You've been reported for providing resources to undocumented aliens. That's a violation of Colony Regulation 4A07. Elias didn't deny it. He simply looked up from the crate engine he was repairing. They were starving, he said. That's not your concern. They're unregistered. If you assist them again, you'll lose your license and be exiled off-world. He signed the fine sheet and went back to work in silence, though his hands trembled on the wrench. That night, when he reached the shelter, Sarah ran to him. They know? She asked, voice breaking. He nodded. She lowered her head. You get punished. For us. I made my choice, he said quietly. You just keep your mother safe. But Maka's breathing was worse that night. Elias checked the small pulse monitor he'd given them. The numbers were dropping. Her heart, Sarah whispered. Serum almost gone. He swallowed hard. I'll find more. There's no more, she said bitterly. Humans take it. Sell it. No one gives. He looked at her, eyes tired but steady. Then I'll steal it. Chapter 6. The Theft. Midnight on New Caridon 4. The med lab shimmered with sterile light, empty except for security drones. Elias had worked maintenance here years ago. He still knew the codes. He moved through the corridors like a shadow, bypassing locks, sliding open storage drawers. There it was, a rack of glowing vials, tyrosine. He took 2 and turned to leave, but the alarm shrieked. Red lights flooded the hall. A drone dropped from the ceiling, plasma ready. Elias ducked behind a console, heart pounding. He hadn't stolen a thing in his life until now. He sprinted down the corridor, slammed through a maintenance hatch, and crawled through the vent shaft until he reached the street. His lungs burned, but he clutched the serum like treasure. When he reached the shelter, Sarah gasped at the sight of him. Blood on his arm, sweat on his face, vials glowing in his hand. He pressed them into hers. Give her one. Quickly. As she administered the dose, Maka's chest rose and fell in steadier rhythm. Elias slumped against the wall. Looks like we bought her some time. Sarah stared at him. This human who'd risked prison for an alien family. Her voice was barely a whisper. Why? You owe us nothing. He smiled faintly. Maybe not. But someone's gotta remind this place what being human means. Chapter 7. The Collapse. They had 1 week of peace. 1 week where Maka could breathe again and Sarah could almost laugh. Elias came every night, bringing soup and stories of the old Earth oceans he'd never seen. Then came the storm. The colony's patrols hit the lower tunnels without warning. Refugee sweep, they called it. They didn't care who they dragged out. Elias heard the alarms and ran. By the time he reached the sector, smoke filled the corridors. He saw Sarah at the tunnel mouth, clutching her mother. Patrol soldiers aimed rifles at them. Stop! He shouted, stepping in front of them. She's sick. She's not a threat. Step aside, the officer barked. By order of. Elias didn't let him finish. He shoved the rifle aside as it fired, the plasma bolt searing across his shoulder. He grabbed the officer's arm, slammed him into the wall, and yelled to Sira, "Run! Go!" She hesitated. He shouted again, "Go!" She dragged her mother into the dark as drones descended. Elias turned to face them, bleeding but defiant. He didn't see what happened next, just the explosion of light and heat, the sound of a collapsing ceiling, and then nothing. Chapter 8. The Return. Years later, the colony forgot about Elias Trent. The file marked him as deceased in riot incident. Life moved on. The Carithian refugees were driven out beyond the rim. But 5 years later, a new ship arrived at New Caridon 4. Sleek silver, unlike anything the colony had seen. The banner it carried shimmered with blue light. The Carithian Unity. From the landing ramp stepped a woman, tall and graceful, eyes silver like starlight. She wore the sigil of a diplomatic envoy. Behind her followed medical officers carrying containers marked tyrosine serum. Her voice echoed through the crowd. "To the people of New Caridon 4, we bring healing. No one here will go hungry again." The governor stepped forward cautiously. "Who are you?" She smiled. "My name is Sira Makadar. I was once a thief on your streets. A human saved my mother's life. Today I return the favor." The crowd murmured, astonished. Then another figure emerged from the ship, older, scarred, walking with a cane but alive. Elias Trent. He looked thinner, but his eyes still held the same quiet warmth. Sira helped him down the ramp. "He lived," she said softly. "We found him buried under the rubble. He rebuilt with us, taught us more than science ever could." Elias gazed out over the colony that had once exiled him. "Guess I took the long way home," he said. The humans and aliens alike bowed their heads as Sira turned to him. "You once fed me every day when I had nothing," she said. "Now I feed worlds." He smiled. "That's what family does." As the twin suns rose above New Caridon 4, their light caught the reflection of humans and Carithians standing side by side, the proof that kindness, not conquest, had changed the future. Epilogue. Years later, statues of Elias Trent and Sira Maka stood at the entrance of the marketplace where it all began. The plaque read, "One gave food. The other gave hope. Together they fed the stars." And under the same twin suns, humanity remembered. Sometimes the smallest kindness can reshape the galaxy. The End. Chapter 5. The Human's Choice. The cold of Varella's second moon seeped into the walls of the shelter that night. Ethan sat awake beside the fire, its flickering light casting long, trembling shadows against the metallic hull. Nira lay asleep near her mother, both wrapped in a blanket made from his spare thermal sheets. He hadn't planned on keeping them here, not for more than a night. But now, with the sight of the sick mother's shallow breaths, he knew he couldn't send them back out. He had spent his life helping strangers in the colony, fixing machines, repairing drones, offering food to whoever needed it, but this was different. They weren't just strangers. They were the very beings the colony feared and despised. And yet, he couldn't ignore the way Nira looked at him, not with the fear of an alien meeting a human, but with the raw desperation of a daughter terrified of losing her mother. When dawn broke, he took a deep breath and said quietly, "I'll go into the city today. There's a clinic in the lower levels, still stocked with medgel. I can find what your mother needs." Nira's eyes widened. "You'll risk that. For us." Ethan nodded, strapping on his utility vest. "Someone once told me that compassion isn't about who deserves it, it's about who needs it." The alien girl looked down, her hands trembling. You, humans are strange. He smiled faintly. That's what they keep telling me. By midday, Ethan reached the outskirts of the colony's medical district. Patrol drones floated above, scanning for unauthorized entries. Humans could pass freely, but aliens, especially undocumented ones, were hunted or deported back to the outer wastes. He hacked into an old terminal, masking his ID signature, and slipped through a maintenance corridor that hadn't been used in years. Inside, the air smelled of sterilizing gas and old plastic. The clinic's emergency lights flickered, revealing shelves of dusty supplies. He loaded his bag with medgel, protein rations, and a sealed injector for respiratory infections, the kind Nira's mother clearly suffered from. But as he turned to leave, a voice echoed through the hall. Ethan Voss. I thought I'd find you here. He froze. The voice was sharp, familiar, a tone like steel scraping stone. He turned and saw Lieutenant Marin, the colony enforcer. Marin's exosuit glimmered in the light. You've been reported. Unauthorized aid to alien entities. You know that's a Class 3 violation. Ethan's pulse pounded in his ears. She's dying, Marin. A mother, just like yours was, remember. The woman's eyes flickered with something. Regret, maybe. But it hardened quickly. You know the law. If we start giving supplies to them, we'll have nothing left for our own. Ethan tightened his grip on the bag. Then maybe your law's broken. Marin sighed, reaching for her stunner. Don't make me do this, Ethan. He took a step back, the fire in his voice low and certain. Then don't. For a moment, the silence between them felt like the breath before a storm. Then, in one swift motion, Ethan hurled a flash charge at the floor. Light exploded through the corridor, and he sprinted for the exit, alarms blaring behind him. He didn't stop running until the city was a distant blur of smoke on the horizon. Chapter 6: The Long Night. By the time Ethan returned, the sun had long vanished behind the red dunes. The sky burned violet, the stars sharp as blades. Nira rushed to him as he stumbled through the doorway, clutching the stolen supplies to his chest. You're hurt, she gasped. A line of blood trailed down his arm from a graze burn. I'm fine, he panted, dropping the bag beside her. Use this. Quickly. Together they worked through the night. The medgel shimmered as it spread over her mother's skin, sealing the infection. The injector hissed as Nira pressed it to her mother's neck. The alien woman convulsed once, then began to breathe easier. Slow, steady, peaceful. Hours later, the fever finally broke. Nira sank to the floor, tears streaking her silver cheeks. She'll live, you saved her. Ethan slumped against the wall, exhaustion washing over him. We saved her. For the first time since they met, Nira smiled, softly like dawn breaking after endless night. Humans are not what the stories said. What do they say? He asked weakly. That humans are cruel. That they only take. That they destroy what they touch. Her eyes shimmered in the firelight. But you gave. He looked at her, the corners of his lips lifting. Sometimes that's the only thing we have left worth giving. Silence settled again, but this time it was warm. The fire crackled. Outside, the desert wind howled against the dome. And somewhere beyond the horizon, the colony's patrols searched for a man who had broken their law, for kindness. Part 4, Chapter 7: The Discovery. The next few days passed in a haze of quiet routine. Ethan repaired the shelter's solar collector, scavenged rations from an old depot, and tried to keep the outside world at bay. Inside, the alien mother, Sarah, slowly regained her strength. Her violet eyes no longer burned with fever but softened with gratitude whenever she saw him. Nira never stopped working either. She cleaned, patched walls, and tended the fire as though the act itself were sacred. And between the silence of the desert nights, she began to talk about her world before the collapse, about the famine that had driven them from their colony, about the stories her people told of the two-faced race called humans. "Half mercy, half monster," she said one night, staring at the stars. "I didn't believe the first half until I met you." Ethan chuckled. "I've been called worse." But deep down her words stayed with him. Because every hour they survived together, he knew the danger closing in. The patrols had been sweeping wider each day. Drones hummed over the ridges at dawn, their sensor lights stabbing the sand. And one evening the hum didn't fade. Grew louder. "Inside now," Ethan hissed, slamming the shelter's panel shut. He killed the lights and pulled Nira and Sarah against the wall. Through a crack in the hull, he watched 3 hoverbikes glide over the dunes, the crimson insignia of the Colony Enforcement Corps blazing on their armor. Marin was among them. Her voice carried through the night. "We know you're out here, Voss. Surrender now, and maybe we can make this quick." Nira's hand trembled on his sleeve. "You can still run. Leave us." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Not a chance." He reached for the power core he'd modified days ago. A crude electromagnetic pulse bomb. It wouldn't kill, but it could blind their sensors for a few minutes. Just enough time. He whispered, "When I say run, you run east. Follow the canyon until sunrise. Don't look back." Nira wanted to argue, but the fire in his eyes silenced her. The moment Marin's voice echoed closer, he triggered the charge. A blast of blue light erupted, swallowing the night in silence. Drones crashed into the sand like falling stars. Ethan grabbed Nira's arm and ran. Blinding winds tore through the canyon as they fled, sand whipping their faces, footsteps echoing through stone. Behind them, shouts rose and faded. Ethan's lungs burned, his legs heavy, but he didn't stop until the first light of dawn touched the rocks. When they finally collapsed behind a ridge, Nira turned to him, breathless. "You could have escaped without us." He met her gaze, his expression tired but steady. "And leave you to die in my place. That's not what humans do." She stared at him for a long moment. "Then maybe the stories are wrong." Chapter 8, The Promise. 2 weeks later the world changed again. Sarah was well enough to stand. Her skin glowed faintly in the sunlight. Her voice had regained the strength of command. "The sickness is gone," she said softly. "But we can't stay here. They'll come again." Ethan nodded. "There's an old transport buried beneath the dunes, a surveyor's ship from the first wave. If we can repair the drive, it can get you beyond the patrol zone." "You're coming too," Nira said quickly. He shook his head. "If I go missing, they'll never stop looking. But if you disappear quietly, maybe they'll think the desert took you." Nira stepped closer, her voice trembling. "You gave up everything. Why?" Ethan looked toward the horizon where the twin suns rose, a smear of orange fire. "Because when I was a boy," he said slowly, "my mother used to steal too. Food, medicine, anything she could find for me. She died so I could live. Maybe this is how I pay her back." Sarah placed a clawed hand over his. "Then know this, human. Our kind remembers debts." They worked in silence through the day, digging out the half-buried craft, patching its hull with scavenged panels, wiring the cracked power conduits. As the engines coughed to life that evening, a low hum filled the canyon, the sound of hope. Before they boarded, Nira turned back. "I don't want to leave you here." He smiled faintly. You'll come back someday. And when you do, maybe we'll have built a world worth returning to. She blinked away tears and stepped forward, pressing her forehead gently against his, a gesture of trust among her people. Then promise me you'll live, Ethan Voss. I'll do my best. The ship lifted slowly, dust swirling in golden spirals. Ethan watched until it became a bright dot against the dying light. Then it was gone. He stood there for a long time, alone with the desert wind. Prologue. Years later, the colony changed. Whispers spread of a human outlaw who'd sheltered aliens instead of turning them in. Some called him a traitor. Others called him a fool. But among the refugees who trickled in from the outer systems, his name became something else. A story, a symbol. 5 years later, when the first treaty between humans and the Varellan Confederacy was signed, a ship descended quietly on the same dunes. Its ramp lowered and a figure stepped out, taller, stronger, dressed in the armor of a commander. "Nira," Ethan whispered. She smiled, eyes bright as ever. "You kept your promise. And you kept yours." Behind her, another figure emerged, her mother walking with a cane, alive and proud. In her hand, she held the emblem of the new alliance. 2 hands, one human, one alien, clasped together. Nira looked at him. "They wanted to meet the human who changed our stories." Ethan laughed softly. "Tell them I'm just a man who didn't like watching people starve." She shook her head. "No, Ethan Voss. You're the reason we learned that mercy isn't weakness." They stood there as the twin suns rose again, painting the sand in colors of fire and gold. And for the first time in centuries, both species watched the same dawn, together. Then, Part 5, The Seeds of Tomorrow, continuation of alien girl stole food from same human every day, for her sick mother he knew. Chapter 9, Return to the Dunes. The wind hadn't changed much in 10 years. It still sang across the glass-hard ridges, still carried the taste of rust and storm. Ethan Voss walked with a slow, uneven gait. His leg never healed right after that final night in the canyon. Yet when he crested the familiar rise and saw the pair of suns climbing the horizon, he smiled. Everything started here. Above him, a ship cut through the light, sleek, silver, and alive with blue drive flame. It descended gently and settled on the sand with a sigh. Nira stepped out first. Her armor gleamed, the insignia of the unified accord bright on her chest. Behind her came aides, guards, and translators. But when she saw Ethan, she waved them off and ran. Yes, ran down the ramp. "Ethan!" He caught her as she reached him, both laughing and breathless. Up close, she seemed taller, her skin marked with faint traces of circuitry, signs of Varellan evolution under human tech. "You look like someone who finally got some sleep," he said. "And you look exactly the same," she teased. "Older, slower, but the same." He chuckled. "Old desert ghosts don't age." Chapter 10, The Mission. They sat by a small fire as they had years ago, though now the air hummed with the quiet presence of drones watching from above. Nira poured him water from a flask. "The accord is fragile," she said. "Trade works, medicine flows, but fear doesn't vanish overnight." Ethan listened, the flicker of the flames painting lines across his weathered face. "What do you need me for?" She hesitated. "A famine has started again. Not here on Varela Prime. The soil died after the old wars. My council wants to relocate thousands to the human colonies in the outer belt." He raised a brow. "And the humans aren't happy about that. They think we'll take their land, their food, their jobs. They've already started arming the border stations." Ethan's voice was soft. "So it's happening again." Nira nodded. But this time we have you. Both sides trust you more than anyone." He almost laughed at that, but the sadness in her eyes stopped him. "So what's the plan?" he asked. "Come with me to Prime," she said. "Show them what mercy looks like." Chapter 11: The Journey. The trip to Varela Prime took 3 days in jump space. Through the viewing deck, Ethan saw a planet that shimmered like cracked glass. Its once green continents were brown scars now, its oceans shallow and red with iron. Even from orbit, he could see camps, thousands of lights strung across the night side. "They still tell your story there," Nira whispered. "The human who gave food instead of bullets." He turned to her. "Stories won't feed them." "No," she said quietly. "But they give them something to believe in." Down on the surface, the camp stretched endlessly. Shelters made from shuttle hulls, children playing in dust. When they saw Ethan, murmurs spread like ripples. "Human. The one from the desert." He spent days moving among them, fixing water purifiers, repairing solar panels, teaching how to graft crops that could grow in thin soil. Everywhere he went, alien hands reached out, not to take but to help. And every night, when exhaustion settled in, he sat with Nira beneath the dying sky, remembering the time she had once stolen food from him. Chapter 12: The Promise Kept. Trouble came as it always did. A human militia ship, one that hadn't accepted the new accord, descended without warning. They demanded all refugees surrender or be fired upon. Ethan and Nira stood on the ridge as the ship's guns charged. "They won't listen," Nira said, her hand on her weapon. "They don't need to," Ethan murmured. He picked up a comm unit and opened a wideband channel. "This is Ethan Voss," he said calmly. "If you fire, you'll hit me first." There was silence, then static. "Voss, you're supposed to be dead." "Maybe," he replied. "But if you start this war again, no one wins. Remember what we built. Remember what it cost." Minutes dragged by. Then the ship's lights dimmed. Engines powered down. The threat was gone. When it was over, Nira turned to him, voice breaking. "You stopped them with words." He smiled faintly. "Sometimes that's harder than bullets." She looked at him for a long time, then reached into her pouch and handed him a small metal token, the emblem of the Accord. "Then this belongs to you. Without you, there would be no peace to protect." Ethan took it, feeling its weight. "Keep it. I never did this for medals." She closed his hand around it anyway. "No. Keep it to remind yourself that one act of mercy can outlive an empire." Epilogue: The Seeds of Tomorrow. Years later, after Ethan passed quietly in his sleep, Nira planted a tree on the very ridge where they'd first met. A tree born from human seed and Varelan soil. When it bloomed, the petals were neither green nor violet, but a strange mixture of both, shimmering in the twin sunlight. Children from both species came to play beneath it. Their teachers told them the old story: the human who shared food with a thief, and the thief who taught her people what humanity truly meant. And in the quiet of the wind, it almost sounded as though the desert itself whispered his name. The END Final Continuation. Part 6. Roots of Stars. The Proper Ending. Chapter 13: The Tree and the Sky. A century after Ethan Voss's passing, the desert was no longer a desert. Rain fell twice a year now, drawn down by orbital mirrors and terraforming vents. Where sand once burned the horizon, pale green fields shimmered in the wind. At the heart of it all stood the Unity Tree, grown from the seed Nira had planted on the ridge. Its trunk was silver-white, its leaves half-green, half-violet, and it reached so high that dawn sunlight filtered through it like stained glass. On this morning Lyra, a young historian of mixed blood, human eyes, Varelan skin, knelt before the tree. She traced the engraving at its roots. Mercy is not weakness. It is memory made kind. Lyra's mother had told her that the words belonged to Ethan himself. But she had always wondered whether kindness could still matter in a galaxy run by algorithms and trade pacts. Above her, a shuttle descended, the same class Nera once flew. From it stepped Commander Nera Varellin, older now. Her skin streaked with faint lines of silver that glowed when she breathed. Her eyes held both warmth and gravity. She had become a legend, yet her voice was still soft. "You're the historian." Lyra nodded. "I came to archive the last living witness of the Accord." Nera smiled sadly. "Then you came for a ghost." Chapter 14, The Last Lesson. They sat beneath the unity tree while the twin suns climbed higher. Nera's hands trembled as she poured tea into 2 cups, human-made ceramic alien leaves. "I thought the Accord would last forever," she said. "But peace isn't a wall you build once. It's a field you keep planting." Lyra listened, recording every word. "There are rumors," she said, "that the colonies want to dissolve the Accord. They say humans gave too much." Nera chuckled. "They said that 100 years ago too. And still we stand." Lyra looked up at the branches. "Did you ever see him again, Ethan Voss?" Nera's gaze drifted toward the horizon. "Everywhere. In the hospitals built with human and Varellin hands. In the way our children share water instead of fighting for it. He's in the quiet between words." She reached into her satchel and drew out a small metal token, the same emblem she'd once given Ethan. "I kept it all these years. But it belongs here now." Together they buried it at the base of the tree. When the soil closed around it, the ground pulsed faintly, bioluminescent veins spreading through the roots like fireflies. Lyra gasped. "What is that?" "The tree remembers him too," Nera whispered. Chapter 15, The Voice of the Accord. That night, a storm rolled across the plains, the first in decades. Lightning laced the clouds, and the unity tree shone like a beacon. Its light reached orbit, reflected on the hulls of ships passing overhead. Pilots slowed their engines, staring at the glow that marked where 2 species had chosen peace. Nera stood outside her quarters, wind tearing at her cloak. Lyra came running through the rain. "Commander! Look!" The storm had uncovered something in the sand. A buried transmitter, old but still functional. Ethan's old voice logs. Nera powered it on. Static filled the air. Then a familiar voice, rough and human. "If anyone hears this, I guess I'm gone by now. Don't let them forget. Don't let mercy turn into myth. Teach them that feeding one hungry soul can change the whole damn universe." The transmission ended. Nera wiped at her eyes, the rain hiding her tears. "Still teaching us even now," she murmured. Chapter 16, The Proper Ending. Decades later, long after Nera's passing, Lyra's recording became the cornerstone of a new age. Children learned Ethan's words before they learned equations. On every world under the Accord, a unity tree was planted. Some grew tall, some struggled in alien soil, but all glowed faintly at night, as if remembering. And somewhere beyond the rim, where stars burn quieter, a small satellite drifted endlessly. On its side, etched in both languages, were the words, "One act of mercy can outlive an empire." The beacon pulsed once, twice, then sent its message outward into the dark, toward whoever might need to hear it next. The ND, the proper, final conclusion.